What's going on, people? Welcome back to 888sport Live, Football Friday Live. My name is Hugh Izzy, and yet again I'm joined by this incredible beard. I'm seeing great progress there from David Priest, our goalkeeping expert, former Aberdeen, Sunderland goalkeeper and goalkeeping coach. Our resident wordsmith, Dion Fanning. We've got some good news coming up for you later in the show. Ladies man, happy Manchester United fan. Not very happy about that myself, but
I'll take that.
Richie, how's it going, everyone? All good?
All good. Better than you.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We've got a great show lined up for you today. So much to talk about. Some breaking news in that Bournemouth, as well as Manchester City, have both been charged. Bournemouth now waiting for the fine. City have been fined, I think, 35k for not letting the FA know their whereabouts with regards to testing and whatnot. And controversial stuff, especially where we consider Pep Guardiola's got a little bit of history in that field. I also want to talk about one of the things coming up anyway. It's going to be football rivalries, sibling rivalries especially. We've seen since I began watching football, the Ferdinands, Anton and Rio, Jerome and Kevin Prince, the Nevilles. And last night there was simply no competition as Paul Pogba's Manchester United wiped the floor with Saint Etienne in the first leg of their Europa Cup tie. A hat-trick from Zlatan, who shows no signs of depreciation. You saw the game? What did you think?
Well, of course, his goals were, his first one was a little bit lucky in the sense it wasn't a free kick, and it was a poor free kick as well.
Was it a penalty as well?
No, well, no. Somebody of his size and stature shouldn't be going down like that. It was a wrap around the ankles, really. But it was. You're right about him. He's 35. He's phenomenal. He's just phenomenal. He's been
unbelievable. A lot of people doubted him when United signed him, whether he could still do it, whether he was too used to playing against farmers. However,
no, but you look at him. You look at all the players that go off before him, and at the end of 90 minutes, the guy's still there.
I know, he's been unbelievable. I think they need to do their best to qualify for the Champions League, just to make sure that he is there next season. Talk of him perhaps moving. Also playing last night, Tottenham Hotspurs, and slightly less convincing performance, especially seeing as their opposition left half their starting lineup on the bench and their top goal scorer didn't feature. Are we beginning to see signs of Pochettino's plan falling apart?
Well, I think because they picked a strong team last night as well, it was a bad result for them, and it is, again at this stage of the season. Last year, Spurs slowed down as well when they should have really made a better title challenge. Again, now this season you've had the champions, the exit in the Champions League. There's some signs that things aren't going as the way they should for Pochettino, but I also think he needs more players in there, and he needs to get the backing of the board to spend some more money.
I think I would like to focus as much as possible on Tottenham's.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, I don't know, are we going to be talking about Wenger? What's this? We're suddenly talking about Spurs.
Obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about Arsene Wenger and the situation that is going on at Arsenal, making all the headlines. Richie,
yes, mate.
Our vote today that you can get involved in at home in the comment section. It features an Arsenal player. Tell us more.
It does, but my very first question is Hugh.
Oh God, he's got questions already.
How are you?
Oh dear. I mean, I'm falling apart, mate. I'm not going to lie. I'm struggling to hold it together.
Okay. Very frustrated. Speaking of frustration, our vote this week is who is the most frustrating player in the Premier League. So if you're watching on Facebook, hit the like button. Interestingly, the like button for Anthony Martial, because we were going to put Mesut Ozil as the like button, but we thought that'd be too obvious. So the like button for Anthony Martial of Manchester United, the love button for Mesut Ozil, the laughing face for Liverpool's injury-prone player Daniel Sturridge. When I say injury-prone player, I mean he is a professional injured player who every now and again kicks a football. And the sad face for Jamie Vardy as well. If you're involved on Twitter, hit the hashtag 888FFL and get involved. Gentlemen, what do you think of those options?
I mean, go on, David.
I was going to say Daniel Sturridge for me. It's just simply because he drew me in. He drew me into liking him. He's got a persona that's not really. It's difficult to like really, but he's a fantastic player, and he's drawn me in. And then all of a sudden, when Liverpool need him, he's not there again.
False horizons from Daniel Sturridge. However, everyone's favourite scapegoat, Mesut Ozil, does feature,
but not as the like button.
Not the like button, so guys, you're going to have to make a little bit of effort.
You're going to have to make more effort than Mesut Ozil usually makes.
We've got, oh God, here we go. We've got an absolutely action-packed show for you to get your teeth stuck into today, though. Let's have a look at exactly what is coming up on the show.
Let's not count that one.
That is a hell of a divot.
He was from the beginning of the season, not just 3 games. Playing always was more than good. Not just Sergio, all the players. So it's not easy for the player that doesn't play.
Last season was unexplainable. What is happening this year to Leicester City makes a lot more sense.
Yesterday I was feeling a little bit. Obviously the doctors were on it. And,
So much to talk about, so many controversial topics, but the one that's been making all the headlines is Arsene Wenger and his tenure perhaps coming to an end at Arsenal Football Club. 3 defeats in 4 games, reported bust-up between Oxlade-Chamberlain and Alexis Sanchez after the Bayern Munich thrashing another 5-1 defeat at the Allianz Arena. It's just all going wrong, and this is where it starts to get emotional for me, because I have a real connection with the guy, but it may well be time for Arsenal to move on. And in fact, fans are in complete meltdown. It's a situation that keeps cropping up. It's almost like a broken record. Repetition is the word that comes to mind.
Well, it is, because it gives us plenty to talk about every Friday, but he's... just to move it away from Wenger a little bit, I think the players you talk about, the 2 players fighting and arguing in the dressing room, I think it'd be too easy to say that they should be doing more of the fighting out on the pitch, really. And they give rise to the accusations that they are a soft side.
I mean, Wenger's press conference today, he actually denied that there was any kind of bust-up. But I have to say that I don't think I've ever seen the guy looking as broken, as dejected. He looked like he was fighting back tears in the post-match interview that he gave. And it's quite sad to see that the guy is almost certainly risking tarnishing his legacy, which is an unbelievable thing. He's done some incredible things at Arsenal. He has taken us into and beyond the transitional move from Highbury to the Emirates. But now that expectations have been raised, now that there are the funds available, people want more.
I think the problem is that if it was one season, if it wasn't the same season over and over again, you could always find a way to kind of justify it. Because you could look at the league this year and say Arsenal are ahead of Manchester United in the table. Manchester United have spent so much money. They've got the most expensively assembled squad in Europe. All these kind of things, and Arsenal are above them. They're in the Champions League. Manchester United aren't even in the Champions League to be losing to Bayern. So Arsenal are there. But the problem is that it's the repetition of it. It's the fact that we say the same things every week and every month and every season. And when that happens, the natural thing to want is to look for some change. But the sadness is that Wenger is so wrapped up in Arsenal and this this idea that what does Wenger when he says today that he'll manage no matter what next season. Like, I find myself thinking that he's going to stay, because I don't know where he's going to go. I don't know where he's going to...
Do you actually believe that the board have the ruthlessness or the actual ambition to say, okay, the fans aren't happy, there's serious problems after games, during games even, in fan fighting in the stadium, banners are coming out, we're seeing people losing their rag afterwards. Emotions are running high right now, but do they have what it takes to say, you've got to go? No, because they like, if you look at what Arsenal have achieved, and if you look at kind of having an American owner, I think Arsenal have kind of achieved a sort of a target that would be kind of really understood in American sport. Like, they're always earning money. They've always got money coming in. They're never falling out of the kind of top 4. All the targets. That kind of story of American owners coming in and being surprised that they've got relegation in the Premier League. Well, Arsenal would never concern you as an owner, because they're always in the top 4 where you want them. It's a very safe investment. Yeah, it's very safe, and for the revenue streams they keep generating, and I think, in a strange way, anyone who came in after Wenger, it could be flipped on its head. You could have the supporters who are going to back them because they've got the change they want, and the board being sceptical, because it's like, well, is this guy going to deliver? Is this guy going to bring the consistency that Wenger... It's 21 years of top 4. Yeah, and 17 years of reaching the knockout stages of the Champions League. Right.
But do you think when we talk about what's changed in the last... I don't know, 6-7 years, Arsene Wenger, has he changed? Has he been bullied into buying these big money players that we talked about before about Mustafi and Xhaka, that they're not performing for him. When before, I know the likes of Henry and Will Todd, they didn't come cheap, but he seemed to be having a knack of bringing these players in and making them much better. Whereas now he's spending a lot of money on these players, and they're just not performing for him.
But I mean, there's a few things here that, from my personal point of view anyway, that one, yes, he's spending a lot of money. I mean, 100 million for Arsene Wenger is an incredible amount. If you think that in 10 years previously he'd spent 9 million net. Once those top class players become available, as Mesut Ozil did when he was let go from Real Madrid, as Sanchez did from Barcelona, he's now shown the willingness to go out and get them. But, have these players been performing, and is he too protective of them? Is his stubbornness and the way that he seems to want to, or it seems to be his way to just take everything on his shoulders, is that having a knock-on effect?
Yeah, but I don't know, because you look at the two teams of the night. Did anybody really expect Arsenal to go and get?
You're delusional if you actually think that there was even a close comparison.
And if they come out of that game with maybe a 2-1 loss, maybe a 2-0 loss, they could possibly turn it around, and it would have been a decent result for them. The fact that it's 5 and there was a bit of a capitulation, then it makes things look worse. But those players that are coming in, and the players that Arsenal can attract, regardless, and I don't care who's the manager, unless it's Guardiola or Conte and one of the very top managers, anybody who comes in now are not going to be able to attract the type of players that will get into the team, Barca, into Bayern Munich's team. You may talk about Sanchez, and he wasn't good enough for Barcelona. That's why he's at Arsenal, and so he's at the level where he should be.
I think the other problem is that I don't think Wenger has changed that much as a manager. There's a famous story about him before at North London Derby back in the days when he had Vieira and Henry and all these players, and he was in the boardroom about 20 minutes before or half an hour before kickoff, and somebody said to him, "Shouldn't you be down talking to the players?" And he said, "I think they know what to do." And he always has managed in this way of letting players play. The problem is the players he's got now aren't the players you can rely on to play. They're not Vieira, they're not Petit, they're not these players who...
They need that kick up the backside.
They need somebody to do it differently, and that's not the way he manages. And unfortunately, the players he's got, for whatever reason, again, every time we talk about it, I think one of the key things is when they didn't buy Luis Suarez. Like, if you buy a player like Suarez, Sanchez is a kind of a poor imitation of Suarez, I think. If you brought someone like Suarez and everything he brings to a team and its attitude, you're transforming the whole dressing room. And Wenger needs that. He needs players like that in the dressing room. Look at Koscielny going off on what happens in Koscielny. I don't think Bayern are that good.
Oh no! Come on now!
I think
come on
at
now.
half time,
I look at that
avoidable goals.
It's not necessarily of what was happening in the game. I think Wenger and even Arsenal have to be not celebrated, but for the fact that we were able to keep it at 1-1. Suddenly, somehow he managed to get the goal in after the penalty after the third attempt, but to have had that unity for a second there were 2 chances that could have put Arsenal into the lead. Xhaka, either side of the goalkeeper, that goes in with 2-1 up. Ozil's then clean through on one-on-one with a fantastic opportunity to bury the hatchet, to really stick 2 fingers up at everyone who's been making him a scapegoat. And yet again, we've gone into half-time in a position that we shouldn't have been in the first place. We should have been ahead of this side. And then you've got this capitulation in 14 minutes after Koscielny goes off, where you've got absolutely clueless defending from Gabriel. Mustafi is talking to Coquelin when he should be focusing on defending. We're all over the place. Coquelin has played 76 minutes and not made a tackle. And you can pick on Ozil all you like. As a £42.5 million player, you perhaps want a lot from him. But if you've got 24% of the ball, what do you expect your attacking midfielder to do? What's he supposed to do? He's not getting the ball. Coquelin made 6 passes in the whole time he was on the pitch. That's not good enough for a club like Arsenal, in my opinion. And if you look at them man for man, Bayern are completely superior in every section of that pitch. Thiago, better than what we've got. Robin, better than what we've got. Douglas Costa, he'd walk into the Arsenal team. Lewandowski, world class. Manuel Neuer, best in the world. I mean,
but did you see how they were when Arsenal got the goal from the Ozil free kick from when Sanchez was fouled? Bayern looked rattled at that point.
They did.
And the problem, I agree with you, but the problem is that Arsenal can't do what other teams in that situation would do and just get even just you don't need to be leading 2-1 at half time. Just keep it at 1. Keep it at 1-1 and
2-1
get
would have been a good result going back
get
home.
1-1, yeah.
Listen, I want to. Sorry to interrupt you, but
It's
I want to
okay,
get you guys involved.
I know how you feel. I've been with you all day.
Let us know in the comments exactly how you think this one is going to pan out, whether it should be Wenger going immediately, who you would bring in instead, which players you think would get into the Bayern side. What are the people saying on social, Richie?
I really wanted to chip in there, but the
Please do,
emotions are
please
running
do.
high. The emotions are running high, so I didn't want to get slapped for interrupting a really good point. With regards to the most frustrating player, the details are on screen now. Get involved in that, as a ton of people are. Kevin Mayer has picked out Ozil. Did you see the clip of him against Manchester City when he was walking around? Another frustrating player who didn't appear on our list from Dr. House, Riyad Mahrez. Indecision from Jamie Morgan, who's gone for well-known footballer Sturzill. Okay, I like what you've done there. Ben Cooper's gone for Sturridge all day long. Ozil apparently picks and chooses when he shows up and isn't consistent enough for a 42 million signing, and that's from James McVeigh. And with regards to Wenger, there's only one real way you lot are going so far. David Hollingshed, he's done a top job, but now it's gone a bit stale. Is he a legend at Arsenal, or is he a footballing legend in general? That's a question for you.
Do you know, we talked about this early on, and somebody asked the question, is he a true football great? And we wouldn't be asking that question if it wasn't for the reaction of the Arsenal fans now. I think everybody else, that's the doubt that's been put in people's head, is because of the way that he's been treated by the Arsenal fans.
Well, Lewis Archer has gotten involved and said that he doesn't think that Wenger is a legend because he's been poor to average at Arsenal for longer now than he was amazing.
No, I think he is. Like what he achieved in English football from when he arrived till 2004, 2005 was phenomenal.
So footballing legend as opposed to just Arsenal.
The man deserves a statue. In fact,
Hugh is going to be building the statue.
You could
He's going straight out.
You could argue that he's already had his statue built, and that statue is called the Emirates Stadium.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal icon of the game, and he is being totally underappreciated and completely disrespected. And I've got to say, whilst I understand the need for change, the need for fresh ideas, it's so sad to see him being ripped apart like this.
But isn't it sadness because because he is so wrapped up? The whole problem is because he's so wrapped up with Arsenal that nobody knows what's going to happen when he leaves, and that almost kind of encourages or provokes an even greater kind of outrage, because it's like, we need to do something. This man has all the power, and yet the response to that is also the kind of sadness, because he has all the power, he has nothing else. Everybody says this. It's not Alex Ferguson who's going to retire and is promising to go off and kind of go around the world and visit vineyards and all this kind of stuff. Wenger is going to be working somewhere else next season. He's going to be watching football. He's going to be watching, on his massive, huge TV where he sits at home watching football matches. So, that's the problem.
But the thing is, we talk about Wenger, the fans talk about Wenger being selfish because he won't give in to what the fans want, or the Wenger out crowd want. But at the same time, it's not selfish for him to love the club and to want to keep working there and to want to give them one more title.
Is that going to happen though? He's under a lot of pressure. We want to know your thoughts. Another man who's under pressure is Pep Guardiola, who unfortunately saw his new signing. He's incredibly talented and so promising, this guy, Gabriel Jesus, going down very early against Bournemouth. And the reintroduction of Sergio Aguero has happened. Here's a look at his press conference, or a moment from his press conference, where he talks about reintroducing the Argentine striker.
He was from the beginning of the season, not just 3 games. Playing always was more than good. Not just Sergio, all the players. So it's not easy for the player that doesn't play.
Our man Tony Barrett was actually at the Etihad today, and he's going to let us know exactly what is going on in Pep's mind.
Today at the Etihad campus, Pep Guardiola hosted a press conference which was ostensibly to preview Manchester City's FA Cup tie away to Huddersfield Town tomorrow, but like so many of his recent media engagements, it turned into a discussion about how and if Sergio Aguero fits into his best team. The situation was made a little bit easier for Guardiola this week, just simply because of the injury to Gabriel Jesus, one which Guardiola fears could rule the forward out for the rest of this season. If so, that changes things for Aguero. I think most people thought it was set for a spell on the sidelines as a substitute for Manchester City. Guardiola addressed that issue once again. You can see he doesn't like talking about it, mainly because he doesn't like the idea that people question his belief that it's about a squad, not just a team, and that all his players are equal. But he did talk about it, and he came out with a line which I thought was particularly interesting. He said Aguero doesn't have to do anything different. It's what he's always done. He doesn't have to show any qualities other than the ones that make him the player that he is. And that's obviously interesting in itself, just simply because if those qualities are good enough, it raised the question of why he's been subbed, why he has lost his place in the starting lineup to Jesus before his injury. But it's clear that Aguero now has a chance to go and prove himself again. Not that a player of his level should have to do that, but he does have to prove that he has what it takes to play for Pep Guardiola in this Manchester City team.
It's a very interesting one. Pep Guardiola's now got a situation on his hands where, with the form that Jesus was in and how that resurgence that they were really feeling, that front three was just looking absolutely electrifying. Sterling and Sane, who's come on so quickly in the Premier League. Now he is having to turn back to Sergio. You've got experience of this. What does it mean when you leave a player on the sidelines and then suddenly you need them? Is he going to be able to get the same kind of energy and urgency out of a player who's been out for a minute?
I think Pep's been very clever in the way that I think a lot of people wouldn't expect Aguero to be in Manchester City next year. I certainly wouldn't. But at the same time, Pep's been very clever way. He's kind of exaggerated his importance to the team and the squad because he wants to make him feel important. He wants to know that when he's needed, he'll play from. There's too many times in the past when I've played with players who have been made outcasts. You know, not that they would do that with the Aguero, but some players like Aguero, elite players who were brought out the side, they see that as a sort of an affront to their pride, and I think that they take it badly. You know,
do they buy that then when the manager starts, you know, if you're left out, do you buy it if you're Aguero and he starts talking about how great he is and how much he just needs to be himself?
He's looked quite agitated on the bench.
Yeah, you know? and well, quite rightly so. Like I said, he believes he should be playing, and in most teams he would be. But I think the fact that when Pep says that he doesn't need to change his game, yeah, of course he doesn't need to change his game because how old is he now? He's not going to change him into to Gabriel Jesus. Or a more fluid footballer. You know, he needs to, if he's going to get the best out of him, he has to make him play the way that he always has done.
Is that even possible though? Because he really does look to me like he's lost a yard of pace, and he hasn't quite adjusted to what is obviously a slight physical depreciation.
Well, there's some times when he's come on sub or he's played games in the last few weeks and you see him and he finds himself out on the left-hand side to come in, try and cut his right, but that's not his game, and you can see he looks uncomfortable, although he is trying to be that different player.
Quick question from Dan Clayton coming. Where next if Sergio Aguero leaves Manchester City? Where next? Because Barcelona, he will never get into the Barcelona team, apparently, or first 11.
I mean, that's quite interesting in itself. Do you reckon he could get in the Barcelona team?
No, but I think that, you know, Atletico Madrid, you know, he could go back there and...
They do. Barcelona are themselves going through a bit of a rough patch. They've absolutely dominated against PSG, and I get the feeling they wouldn't mind another forward because their signings haven't really worked out. Are they over-reliant on Suarez, especially in the fact that they have to use him in La Liga all the time, and that front three never really changes with Luis Enrique?
And it's worked up till now. You know, you look at Messi, you know, he never gets rested, you know, because, you know, if he's fit, he plays because he's that important, and the three of them are together. I mean, if they get dominated in defence and midfield like they did against PSG, then there's not a lot that the front three can do if they're not getting the ball. And PSG, their pressing game the other night was unbelievable. As soon as they gave the ball away, or as soon as that ball was being played out in the final third by Ter Stegen, they were on them and they gave the ball away more than I've ever seen them before.
Where do you reckon Aguero will end up, Dion?
I think maybe Atletico could be an answer. I can't see him. I can't see. Or China possibly if he's, you know, if he's tempted by.
He left Atletico in like unceremonious circumstances. In fact, the president's actually come out and said he's the only player that has left there in recent times, kind of through the back door, forced his way out almost, and. Maybe he was almost viewed heroically there. Turned up at 18, shone, nearly took them to the La Liga title, definitely won the Copa del Rey there, got them into Europe. He looked fantastic, so it's a real possibility anyway. Anyway, we're going to move on to this week's How Hard segment, which features an all-black Harlequins fly half, Nick Evans. Now, the question is, Nick, can you handle different shaped balls? Let's have a look.
We have our first rugby union representative coming to take on the How Hard Challenge, ex-New Zealand international and Harlequins fly half, Nick Evans. Thank you for joining us.
No worries, mate.
Now, surely you can put an egg-shaped ball through there from here, but how hard can you kick football?
I don't know, mate. I'm a little bit nervous. I'd like to think I can kick it hard, but football's not my first sport. Right, so there we go.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
52 miles an hour. 52 miles an hour. It's not a bad start.
I'm all about placement, lads.
Nick Evans, West Ham fan, channeling Winston Reid.
Channeling Winston Reid, defender in me. Let's not count that one.
That is a hell of a divot. That was 31 miles an hour.
That's fine. That was just another warm-up.
Bear in mind, you are representing rugby union as a whole.
I'm sorry, lads and ladies.
Just like that. 60 miles an hour.
So we're getting there, aren't we?
Nick Evans, New Zealander, rugby player. That represents English rugby.
I hate the English rugby. I love all the Quins lads though. I hope they do really well.
Obviously, yeah.
But when they put on a white jersey,
That's a nice one. 64 miles an hour.
so that's my best one so far.
Up and under. Good goal kick.
Yeah, real good goal kick.
60. Dead
60.
on. 60 miles an hour dead on. Our first rugby union representative has come through and done the How Hard Challenge. Nick Evans, how do you think you got on?
Caught a couple of good ones.
Yeah.
I sent my foot into the ground on one, so that wasn't that good.
64 miles an hour puts you joint fourth.
Just out of the middle, but
Just out of the
I'll take that.
If this was egg-shaped, what do you think you'd get?
I'd like to think I'd get a lot more. I'd hope
120
so.
miles an hour.
I'd hope so, but no, these old legs and chicken legs, I don't know if they'd get up above 70 odd.
Love that. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
mate.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm absolutely shocked. He's one of the best kickers in rugby union, and he's had an absolute shocker.
Was he wearing those, rugby players sometimes wear those like steel capped, like,
I mean,
boots,
pit boots.
Yeah, like, what was going on there?
He's had a nightmare. Run up was
Tim
all wrong,
Westwood was
technique was
better.
all wrong. He was
But
a
I
bit
know
like
he
a goalkeeper in a way, trying to get the height under it.
Well, in fairness to him, he did say something that was quite prevalent there. He was saying that he's more about placement more than power, which
Yeah.
is right. And when you're kicking a rugby ball, it's more like a golf shot. It's about the mechanics of it rather than the power. So I'll
This
give
is
him
what
that. And to be fair, he beat me.
Hugh, when are we going to see you kick a ball?
Oh, I'm ready, right? And Nick, I'm going to be beating you, so don't worry about that, my son. Now, it's time for us to get in to all the odds surrounding this weekend's games, all the biggest talking points, and we are joined, I'm delighted to say again, by our 888sport ambassador and betting expert, Emma Spencer. Welcome back, Emma.
Yeah, good to be here again. Tons and
Fantastic
tons
to
to
have
talk
you.
about. I mean, every time I feel I'm in here, it's poor old Arsene Wenger that's getting it, and you're slowly frying and melting
Hugh's
into
getting
your chair a little more. But
I
we'll
know,
touch
right?
on that in a minute.
Yes.
Let's start with the FA Cup. Huge weekend, and let's have a look at how they bet for the outright winner. Chelsea 7-2, City 15-4, United 4-1, Arsenal 9-2. Does anything appeal there? I mean, Man United was the one that stood out for me.
Yeah, I think United is a good bet. It's a good trophy for Mourinho to win. It's a trophy that allows him to claim that he's rejuvenating the club, even though it's really a consolation prize. But I could see with the spin Mourinho will put on it, the FA Cup is something he could target.
Well, Arsenal is having a shocker, but surely they can beat Sutton, can't they? Sutton 16-1 to beat them. Sutton even to get a goal against them.
I mean, I wouldn't actually bet against them getting a goal against Arsenal with the way we're defending against Bayern. Absolutely shocking,
Totally abandoned
abysmal.
them. You've totally abandoned
To
Arsenal.
be fair, it's a little bit different.
I'm just being realistic, right? There are actually 3 ex-Arsenal Academy and Arsenal players in the Sutton side. I'm sure they'll be doing their very best to make their mark, and they'll love playing against some ex-teammates. However, we've got to be winning this, surely, lads.
It
Surely.
hasn't got that bad yet, has it?
I mean, we're talking literal disaster if this doesn't go well.
I'd still put a 10 on them scoring a goal or something.
Yeah, not a bad idea in my eyes.
Money, yeah.
David, quick question. Lincoln against Burnley. That's a tough ask, isn't it? Lincoln are 19-2 to beat them. Burnley is so solid away.
Yeah, it's probably
Or
the
Burnley
worst.
home, but-
Yeah, it's probably the worst draw that Lincoln could have had, really, because Burnley they're doing well this season. They're 10 points clear of the relegation zone. They're going to stay up. They're going to fancy a trip to Wembley. So they'll put a strong side out. They're strong at home, and I think I've backed Lincoln every round, but just not this time.
But it is a game, like we talk a lot about how the FA Cup is diminished, but Lincoln's run is something that, like my wife is from Lincoln and her family, like they're all wrapped up in this. My nephew was over this week and all he's talking about is the cup run, and this is a game that Burnley, they will struggle, but it's a game that kind of captures the imagination of a club like Lincoln, so would like them to do well.
Sentimentality is where it all goes wrong. I speak from experience here with Wenger. I'm sorry. Lincoln,
if Lincoln lose...
This is the week that Lincoln are gone. I'm sorry, lads.
So it's strange. This is an example of what happens.
Let's be realistic here. Arsene Wenger's won the FA Cup 6 times. Let's show the man a little bit of respect. If there's one competition that we possibly can do something in, this may well be it. It's Wenger against Mourinho for me. That's where your money should be.
Okay, well, if they were to lose, there's probably worse place to have a pound on than Arsenal, than Wenger to go at 100-1 by the end of the season. It could just all go out the window in one go.
I'll have the double. Something to score and Wenger to go.
You think Wenger will go if Sutton score? That's how bad it's gone.
He'll be off at half time. I'm done with this lot.
Quick word on next year. He's 2-5 to still be there next year. What was your spin on the press conference today?
I thought he was, as per usual, very classy, if not slightly overly defiant. But he has obviously had words with the board already in my eyes. And like I said before, I don't believe that they have the ruthlessness to actually kick him out. If anything, they're showing him perhaps a little bit too much respect. And I can see it being much more likely that he will be there next year. He said, it was almost like he was throwing the gauntlet down as well. Like, I am going to be managing next season, regardless of whether it's here or not. It's almost like, it's your choice. You do what you want with me.
Can they turn it around in the Champions League? They're 20-1. I mean, it seems highly unlikely, doesn't it?
No, they can't.
I still see them win the second leg, but...
Not 4-0.
Not so.
If anyone can Barcelona?
Yeah, they can. They've got the firepower. I think they've performed poorly, but we all know the new camp, they can... if they turn it on, they can demolish anybody. Doesn't matter who they are.
I'm going to go against that because I've watched a lot of Barcelona this season. I don't believe in Luis Enrique whatsoever. I think he'll be gone by the end of the season. And I would say that 4 goals, 3 perhaps, could have been more possible. But PSG have got a world-class side full of talent. And the way that they broke on the counter was so impressive that if Barcelona aren't pushing forward and leaving space open, especially in that expansive midfield that they've got, Andre Gomez has been bang average. I can't see them getting 4 goals.
Well, let's take the spotlight for a second away from Arsene Wenger and talk about which manager might be being sacked next. Ranieri is 4-6, but realistically, who can take over from him?
We'll ask our resident Ranieri expert here.
Well, if they get rid of Ranieri, I think they'll probably go back to the well of managers. They'll go through sort of a relegation expert. They might even Nigel Pearson might be, although I don't know how popular that would be at the club. So there is that problem, but I still think he's 4-6. I think it's a bet. The way things are going at Leicester, you will be tempted by that one.
And the owners of the club a couple of weeks ago gave a very positive spin on him staying, didn't they?
Well, we talked about votes of confidence and how much meaning you can put in them, and I still think what Ranieri has said since then means that it's a troubling situation for him, and I think that if things get worse, they'll have no option.
And Hugh, speaking of confidence, this man is on a roll.
He is indeed. It's time for this week's 888 Sport betting battle. Look what we have here! Incredible scenes. Dion, I'm very proud of you, mate.
Thank you.
You've done one over on us.
Pleasing you is what I try to do this for. Seal of approval.
Just to enlighten those who are new to the show, every week 888 Sport have kindly given us £10 each to bet on a winner, and all the proceeds will be going to charity. So far, we have made a total of £128.20. Not bad, and I will be claiming just over 60% of that. However, we've had a nightmare, David. Last week, David, you went for Everton, United and Chelsea. Everton and Chelsea both drawing and letting it down. Dion, he's chose the winner. A smart choice as well with Swansea, who've been just gradually getting better. Defensively, they look so impressive under Paul Clement. Claude Makelele's influence finally happening. Leicester City obviously crumbling. A massive game that was as well. And I went for Gabriel Jesus to score and Manchester City to win. And would you believe it? 10 minutes into the game, he's gone off. Walk it off, lads. I mean, come on. Only a broken foot, mate. Come on. unbelievably disappointing. However, this week we have got FA Cup fixtures galore, and we're going to sink our teeth into those. Let's have a look at these.
Well, let's start with you, because you've got a completely new strategy this week. You've
Well,
changed tack
yeah.
completely.
I have indeed. I am going for Leicester City to beat Millwall, and I'm questioning that because Leicester are going to put the kids out. Chelsea to beat Wolves, I'm questioning that because Wolves have been so impressive. That win against Liverpool, that is just brilliant.
This sounds a really
This
convincing
is,
bet
he's
so
really
far,
racked
doesn't
by
it?
This is how you
He's
do
only
it.
had all week to think about this.
I'm going for Brighton to win because they have been the most impressive side for me in the Championship. And who else am I going to go for?
Burnley.
Burnley, yeah. I believe that they will definitely knock out Lincoln. Lincoln, the dream is over. I'm sorry, lads. What does that get me, Emma?
And that gets you 7-1 if all 4 teams
Is that
win.
it?
After all that. David, what about you?
I'm going to go for Fulham to beat Tottenham. I think they've put out a weaker side. They'll make a few changes. They weren't very impressive against Wickham in the last round. They had a bit of trouble with them. So and Fulham are playing well at the minute. So I'll go for Fulham.
Bit of value there, 16-5, and Dion?
I'm going to the well again, the well that is Leicester getting beaten, so I'm going for Millwall to beat them. I think, again, they're going to put the rest their first team for, although maybe Millwall have a better chance if they played Leicester's first team. And I just think it's a tough place for Leicester to go and go for Millwall.
Millwall 2-1.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck, guys. That's about it for this week's betting battle. Emma, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. It's time now to get back to Arsenal, isn't it? It's typical. Yet again, Mesut Ozil has been made a scapegoat, especially after the 5-1 defeat. We will be delving deeper into that, but here are 5 facts about the German maestro. He went missing, did he? He went missing. We're going to talk about this now because I've got real issues here. He went missing. Our attacking midfielder, lots of people calling him invisible. Some saying he was at fault for Ian Robben's incredible goal, which I have seen umpteen times. Obviously, Francis Coquelin hasn't. Let's just talk about this for a second. I saw 2 clear looks over the shoulder from Ozil, who was very aware that he had the incredible pass master that is Xavi Alonso right behind him. He looked like he was doing a job there. We had Kieran Gibbs on the left-hand side playing at left back. We had Iwobi tracking back, both already on Robben. We had Francis Coquelin literally inside Robben's pocket. And then suddenly, he's decided to show him inside. He's ducked his shoulder. I mean, Francis, please,
This is a really
entertain me.
This is a really loaded question.
It is a basic of defending that you defend the sort of the centre of the pitch and show people outside at all times, especially when you've got, it doesn't matter whether it's Arjen Robben and he's got the quality that he has. It doesn't matter about that. You always show outside because if you're inviting people to shoot, you're inviting them a chance to score, and it doesn't matter who they are. People say they shouldn't score from there. Players do though, don't they?
He does it all the time. The way he wraps his foot around it is actually incredible. But you would think that players would have been well drilled about this very situation happening.
Yeah, no, you don't let that happen. Like what David says is right, but it's also doubly so if it is Robben, because you've seen it 1,000 times, and I'm afraid that's kind of coaching as well. Like I know you expect the players to know it, but they also need to be told it. I think they need to be repeatedly told. And there are so many managers now who wouldn't leave that to chance. They wouldn't. No, I'm not saying they weren't told it, but I wonder how much time is spent on those things, or is it just assumed that these players are intelligent enough to know that you don't do that?
You know, it's often argued that Arsene Wenger does everything. I've heard other people say that Steve Bold is most involved in the defensive side of things. It's worrying that something like that's happened. It's worrying that Shkodran Mustafi thought it was okay to be talking to Coquelin whilst Gabriel, who's looking absolutely clueless right now, left his man for, he got left for dead. And then Shkodran has realised that there's been a little 1-2 going on behind his back a little bit late. He's realised that there's a defender behind him as Lewandowski heads the ball in his goal. Shocking defending. And you've got to think that this is why people are so agitated. This is why they want change. This is why we need fresh ideas. Actual modern day coaches who are drilling these guys and kicking them up the backside when they see things like this happening, especially during the game.
You see, I think there's this thing again about the disconnect between the management or the manager and the players, and the fact that the manager, whatever he wants from the team, you don't see it on the pitch anymore. And then you have this situation where you've like someone like Ozil who gets all the blame because he strolls through a game. And in England, you can't be seen to stroll through a game.
But this
now,
is
Sanchez. Let me finish.
Go on. Sorry, dear.
Well, I'm going to make it a slightly pro Ozil point.
Right.
Someone like somebody like Sanchez has copped on to the fact that you can't do that in England. Sanchez was a disgrace on Wednesday. He spent his whole time from the get-go. He's waving his arms around. He's making it clear that he's not happy with various things that the rest of his team are doing, including possibly the way they were set up to play, which was to play deep. And he's kind of encouraging them to come forward. Now, if they're set up to play deep, most of the time that's probably the manager's instructions. So Sanchez saying, "No, hold on, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do what I want to do." And he spent the entire game waving his arms in a showboating. It was showboating.
He's definitely drawn attention to himself.
It was drawing attention to his commitment. Ozil should look at Sanchez and say, "Hold on a second. All I need to do is to wave my arms around." He started doing it a bit in the second half. He copped on. This is how you maybe win the PR battle. You start flinging your arms around.
I think it's
nonsense.
I think it's quite interesting that when you actually look at the two players and the way that they approach things, or the energy they show on the pitch, it's quite clear that one is used to running with his dogs on the beach and playing, this keep ball, sometimes running in the opposite direction in which he should be. And then Ozil, who's seen as this lethargic character, actually made more tackles than any of the 22 players who started the game, apart from Vidal, who's probably top 3 in his position in the world.
Chris Tyler has just chipped in saying he may be working hard, but he had a chance where he was through one-on-one and he should be putting that away.
He did.
Yeah, he should have scored.
But there's also the argument about players, the position, and just because somebody's not moving doesn't mean they're not doing a job. And if Wenger's obviously putting them in that position to cover the defensive midfield player or to stop an option, but at the same time it's about them being clever more than about being lazy. And I think I learned that about people saving energy. We've always had this idea about continental forwards and South American forwards being lazy because they're not on the move all the time, they're not closing down all the time. When you've got to realise that they're actually conserving energy, and then just by placing themselves on the pitch, they're doing a job for the team.
Ozil is about finding space.
Yeah, exactly.
You watch him at Real Madrid, for example, and I know that we're talking about a different class of players, and I want to get on to which players you think are actually worthy of taking Arsenal forward. But you look at Ozil getting the ball at Real Madrid, and as soon as he's in contact with it, players dart off into every direction. They find as much space as possible, and he's able to find them. He's a facilitator, and if you have 24% possession, you cannot expect your attacking midfielder to be having that much impact. You don't have the ball. What are you expecting from the guy?
How different would it be? Like, how much of an change to Arsenal results in general would it make if Ozil ran about a lot? If he did what Harry Redknapp shouted to Pavlyuchenko all those years ago, and effing run about a bit. Like that's the kind of instruction in English football: run about. I don't think it would make any, because as you say, the key thing Ozil needs is for other people to be running about. And I think Arsenal players they know that he's a lightning rod for everything. No matter what goes wrong, Ozil gets the blame, and there's 9 or 10 of them not doing it.
Where Sanchez being clever, he's kind of playing the crowd. He's letting the crowd know, this is what I'm doing, and he's being clever by running down his causes and chasing back. Yeah, and it's clever, but it's from a player's point of view, it's become tiresome, and I think the rest of the players, they'll be able to see that as well. He can see what he's doing to them.
There's no doubt in my mind that attitude, it rubs off on people and they start to get affected by it. But also, I do think that Wenger has to take some of the blame for this, because the setup on the side, it was really questionable. To put Xhaka, who has no mobility really, next to Coquelin, whose passing ability is questionable at best, when he had the option of El Neni, who's so quick at shuffling and giving and getting and finding space, and he's got such high energy. it doesn't do us any favours then. And all three of them, it's like Alexis is, it's almost like he's been bought because he's a top player, not because he fits the system. And I feel like Ozil is perhaps like that as well.
But if Sanchez, if he thinks he's that important to the team or he's that influential, then to me, I don't see why he didn't. You know, everyone talks about this thing about Kieran Gibbs getting the armband, which is an absolute nonsense, by the way.
What does that mean anymore?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, all players, every player in the pitch has a responsibility to coach each other and to manage each other on the pitch. It's not just about one person. This idea of this like mythical sort of captain, this chest beater, that's gone. It's not the modern day footballer. They are more knowledgeable. They are with their tactics. So they should be able to pull each other about, but it's about taking that responsibility. And I think, like Kieran Gibbs, he's 27 years old, played 150 times for Arsenal. He's been there all his career. He's played for England. Why shouldn't he have the armband?
Is he good enough? Which Arsenal players are actually good enough to take Arsenal to the next level, to become a side like Bayern Munich, who, for me, are far superior man for man? And I question whether any of the players in Arsenal, perhaps two, you could argue three max, would get into their side, even their squad. We are going to move on, however. We have had a chat with author James Brown about his new book, which is called Above Head Height, and he's going to talk to us about what is an indescribable feeling when you're playing five-a-side football. Let's have a look at this. Now, James, fantastic book. I will say this much. There's something about playing under the floodlights. There's something about playing with your mates. Power League is certainly, it's had a real impact on getting people involved in football for love and not money. And your story is quite touching. Grew up in Headingley, Leeds. Tell us a bit about the story behind it.
About why I wrote the book?
Yeah.
Well, about 15 months ago, our weekly Wednesday night, Sunday morning organiser died, really unexpectedly. And it got me thinking about just what a fixture in my life five-a-side is. It lasted longer than any jobs I've had, it's lasted longer than my health and my physique, it lasted longer than any relationships, but I show up every week. We're not in a power league, we just play with our mates. But I don't know any of their surnames, don't know what they do for a living, but I know what they're like as players. I know which one's a lazy get, which one will give everything even though they're not that talented. You know, as soon as the leg goes back on certain players, the ball's going out of the park. And, you know, and it was just a really strange scenario that I spent every Wednesday, every Sunday with these people for 17 years.
Wow.
And yet actually, come the end of the game, you know, rarely seen them even in normal clothes, just kit. So that was the starting point of it. And then what I did from there on, I wrote about just like the passion I've had for playing football from the streets, going up through to like school teams, works teams, and then just as I get older, just playing with my mates in those sort of informal situations.
Now, I've got a little bit of experience playing five-a-side in that I got very lucky going to Brazil, actually played in a side with Patrick Vieira, Lizarazu, Sylvain Wiltord, in this incredible scenario of like in the favelas at the World Cup, and it does really bring home, like, that's a special circumstance, but anyone can get involved, anyone can get their kit on and, you know, strut their stuff, and there's a lot of options here. We've got players like Wayne Rooney, who's grown up on street football. Alexis is a guy who's grown up kicking a can around. It really encourages people to get in the game, and I think for the right reasons, right?
Yeah, well, I've read James's book, and it's a part of the game that I'd lost. You know, playing the game for enjoyment and for fun, and getting all the fun that I used to get out when I was a kid. But at the start of the book, James talks about all the games that you play when you're a kid, what it's like when you're out with your mates, and really to have a game of football when you're that age, when you're a kid. Well, when we were kids anyway, you didn't need anybody else. All you need was you, a wall, and a ball. And I think that's what I got from it, was that that's what's lost now. There's players being lost to the game, that or players aren't being developed because they haven't got this environment. It's the parents don't want to go outside, play in the street. They might get knocked over by a car. Well,
no one's got to dribble around a car anymore.
No, exactly, yeah.
But there's always that
we had to do a lot.
Nobody crawls under a car anymore to get the ball back. Like, to me, it's sad.
There's always that great thing when you play five-a-side and you might be short a player or two, and like a local, you've got the kind of guys touching middle age, and then a local kid comes along and plays, and he just destroys you all.
That happens in our games a lot, because I'm at the age now where me and the other players have got kids.
Yeah.
My son's 15, Marlis, but then it goes up to sort of 17, 18, 19, 21, even the early 20s. And actually, they make the game better, but it's just like fighter jets going past a mountain, The mountain is not going to move, the fighter jets are just flying, and it's... but that is good, that's good that when you get people coming in and just bringing some youth into the game, it's exciting.
But it's also the great sort of platform for people of all, you kind of sort of cling on to those sort of sporting dreams, don't you? Anything you do in five-a-side, you kind of cherish it as if you've kind of real sporting achievement. I remember we had a five-a-side team in playing in the Westway in London called Whiskey Town, and we won a league one year, and it was, I still look back at it as that was kind of almost pure happiness. Like we sort of won this thing, and it was like.
What position are you playing?
I was kind of I had a floating role. I was
floating
around. Player
Mesut Ozil.
I was lazy as Mesut.
Dion, did you say floating around or funning around?
But that was it though. You talk about the dreams though. Like even when I signed for Sunderland, I was 15, 16 when I signed for Sunderland full time. Even on the afternoon when I was going to do a little bit extra, I'd go behind the stand in Roker Park where the goal. Painted on the wall with like numbers so you can practice.
Yeah.
And I still played out even though I was literally living the dream. I was still playing it out in a dream scenario.
There's a story in the book about a guy that I'm playing with who gets signed by Sheffield Wednesday, and you just think, obviously, till I was about 35, I thought I still might get signed. you just at the or like maybe 3 or 4 times I've had dreams where I'm leading Leeds or England out. Proper dreams, not fantasies when you're awake, but actually you wake up and you think, fuck, pardon me, where's my kit? I need my kit. And, but actually, to be playing with somebody who 2 weeks later is playing for, they loaned him straight out to Bury straight away and played Bradford. That was amazing, seeing somebody you were playing with. And I think that what Dion says is what he's picked up in the book is that when we're playing five-a-side, we are actually living the dream that you always believed. Because we're not playing professional football, but at my age, professional footballers have already retired 17 years before. So if you can keep playing, I compare it to sort of sporting karaoke. When someone's belting out a tune in a pub or a karaoke bar, you can see the most amazing singers, but for whatever reason, they work as a dental assistant or in a chip shop or selling ads or something. And it's the same with football. There are too many good players for the places available, but that's not a reason to stop playing. And the younger boys that I used to coach when they were sort of 12, 13, 14, a lot of them are still playing rather than, they went into academies and they came out and they didn't give up. They still play, and I think that's really inspiring. That's another element of playing with younger guys.
Inspiring stuff. Keep living the dream. Above head heights. James Brown, thanks very much for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. That book is available now. Now, from dreams to nightmares, Claudio Ranieri is under extreme pressure, and he's kind of thrown his players under the bus after losing to Swansea. It's all falling apart. They can't win for the life of them. They can't even score a goal, to be quite honest. Resident wordsmith Dion Fanning is going to have a closer look at what exactly is going on with Claudio Ranieri. Let's have a look.
When the end comes for Claudio Ranieri at Leicester City, and it will come, there are those who will take it as conclusive proof that finally, this time, the game has gone. How could his position even be in doubt, they'll say, when he led Leicester to the miraculous title last season? People who don't pay much attention to football but love the Leicester City story will use his fall as an example of why they don't pay much attention to football. But Ranieri is in trouble for the same reason he has suggested he might make changes to the team that won the title last season. If there was absolute loyalty in football, then Ranieri would have a job for life, and he would pick every player from last season all the days of that life. But that isn't how football works. If last season was an unexplainable fantasy, this year has been brutally corrective. In this new brutal world, Ranieri has suggested he might have to make changes because he knows that changes have to be made. If he doesn't make them, somebody else will, and somebody else could make them anyway. Of course, it isn't fair. If Ranieri wasn't wholly responsible for the success, then he shouldn't be the only one to blame when things go wrong. Last season was unexplainable. What is happening this year to Leicester City makes a lot more sense. It might not be fair that Ranieri is under pressure, but Ranieri knows that fairness has nothing to do with it. This is what he signed up for. Last season the game had gone mad. Now Claudio Ranieri is dealing with its grim reality.
It's quite sad to see the team command falling apart and throwing his players under the bus. It's almost the last card that he's got to play though, really. Dion, where does he go from here?
Well, I think the problem is he doesn't really know where he's going to go. I think it's a kind of desperate situation. This is the kind of situation he almost expected to be in at Leicester. It wouldn't even be newsworthy if last season hadn't happened. He was brought in as a gamble to keep them in the Premier League. Remember the reaction when he got the job. People were saying, that's not going to work. Last season happened, but ultimately keeping Leicester remaining in the Premier League is what he's there for. And once he said what he said about the players, he's kind of changed. He's undermining himself, even though he knows what's coming anyway. He knows he's under pressure, but if the players are expendable, he's expendable.
Question just come in. If he hadn't won the league last season, do you think he would have already gone? If so, when? From Steve Elliott.
I don't think so. I think he'd still be under. Possibly. I think they'd be looking at it. They'd be thinking, I think they'll make a change to keep him out of relegation anyway. But I'm not sure he would have gone.
He'd probably be in a better situation, really. If they just stayed up last season and in a similar position this year, then it's kind of where they'd expect it to be. But you know, we talked about before about people asking, well, what did he do? What did he change last season that made the team so great? And in my eyes, he didn't do a great deal at all. He did nothing. And I think the biggest.
What do you mean by that? Like, how do you know? Like,
well, I think the biggest positive for Ranieri last season was that he wasn't Nigel Pearson.
Right.
Now, I think, as I understand it, if Nigel Pearson had still been manager at the start of last season, they'd have lost Jamie Vardy. He'd have been playing Championship football. Danny Drinkwater would have left. Kasper Schmeichel would have left. Those three integral players from last season, they would have gone. And then where would they have been then?
Is Vardy actually regretting that now, not moving to Arsenal? Arsenal could well have done with a striker. It's almost like there's this parallel universe where he's scored at the Allianz and we're actually going somewhere.
Well, I thought when it all fell through and he stayed at Leicester, I thought sort of Arsenal had escaped there because they were going to pay a lot of money for a player who had only been proven really at that level for one season.
Same with Morris.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think that the fact that he didn't go there, they've escaped on. But I think it's you never know. It might have been worked out for both of them.
You know, is that more a case of they're just comfortable now in the fact that they're always going to be Leicester legends? And
well, no, I think that's the strange thing. Like, you know, the question there, would they be under as much? Would he have been sacked already if they hadn't won the league last season? You know, like the thing is, they won the league. He can be sacked. It doesn't really change anything. I can understand why Leicester would do it, but it doesn't. You know, as you said, like they might have been better off finishing 16th last season, but that wouldn't be. That's not what you want from football. Like the people who believe in the miracle of last season wanted Leicester to be champions. It doesn't mean they shouldn't get rid of him now as they kind of try and stay in the Premier League. But that was the improbable story that everybody loved.
We're looking at it from a different perspective. I think in my mind, you know, people say, well, would you rather if it meant staying longer in the Premier League and forego that title? I'd probably say yeah for the long-term future of the club. But if you ask a Leicester fan, they'd probably say, well, we'll take the title and get rid of it.
Of course, the fairy tale, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now it's on to the FA Cup this weekend for Manchester United and Jose Mourinho as they face Blackburn Rovers, who are in a whole heap of trouble. Another team that have won the Premier League and could well be relegated themselves from the Championship this season. We decided to put Jose through our honest subtitles machine.
Or because we didn't play well, but I'm not going to throw it away. I go to Blackburn with that respect. We played already Reading and Wigan from the Championship, so it's not new for us. Am I going to repeat this team? No, I'm going to change a few players, obviously, but I'm going with a good team because I respect the competition a lot.
Continues its own course to be the most since 2000.
You know, normally it's because attitude, because you think it's easy and it's not easy.
Rooney and Carrick a fit like that start for you?
I want them to be fit. I want them to be ready. Even today, if they were.
I'll check on Henrik.
He's ill. He's ill. He didn't. He stayed at home. Yesterday he was feeling a little bit. Obviously the doctors were on it. And.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thanks.
Come on, one more. One bonus. Next one.
Why do you feel that it's not the same for other managers?
I don't know. Maybe we don't have as many English managers with that culture as we should. Maybe we foreign managers, not everybody studies and understands the culture of this country.
Jose Mourinho giving bonus questions out. It's quite interesting seeing his response when they win. He's obviously quite happy with the way things are going. They've made incredible comebacks sort of in the Premier League, even though they've been in 6th forever. And views from the 6th is something that you really do associate with Richie Driss. I would say that they are now a win away from, let's say, if Arsenal were to lose to Liverpool, swapping places and being in those Champions League spots.
That'd be beautiful.
They are really fighting on a few fronts right now.
Yeah, the best thing about it now is that it's all. I mean, the titles are a foregone conclusion now, and it's all hotting up behind them. And I think that's from a few weeks ago, you think, oh well, they're not going to. I sat here and said they're not going to finish in the Champions League. Well, now you never know. I mean, and it's typical Jose Mourinho size. You know, they're doing enough to beat teams. They're not playing tremendous football. They're not steamrolling teams with great football, but they're just getting the results.
I thought the SGN game, the second half, the first half they looked dodgy. Apparently he's had words. I thought the second half they looked quite good. More attacking side than I've seen them play football this season, to be honest. Martial at times is breathtaking. I'm not sure why he hasn't been unleashed more.
I think against weaker sides, United, Mourinho's letting them play attacking football. Right. The problem still is when they play the good teams, the old instincts kick in, and he just thinks about avoiding defeat. So like that's the next hurdle they probably have to clear, and that's the question with Mourinho, whether he ever can change to get send a team out to play attacking football in those big games.
That's what the fans will want, but I'm sure that they'll be very happy with grinding out results as well. In fact, that's what he's built his career on, really. Richie, we're going to come to you in a second, but I just want to get quick thoughts from all three of you on. We're going back to Arsenal, right? We're going to wrap this up by saying something has to change. The football club is in a dire state right now. The fan base is in complete meltdown. If you could change one thing at Arsenal, just one thing, what would that be, David?
Do you know what? I feel sorry for him, and he doesn't deserve to be in the situation that he is. I think he deserves to be appreciated. I think he should come to Sunderland. We will look after him. We will make sure his dinner's on the table every night. We'll massage his feet. And we'll wear something nice when we go to bed with him. We will look after Arsene Wenger. Come to us, we'll give you.
Can you provide a long enough jacket?
We can have a full duvet and we'll sew some arms. We'll sew some arms onto it.
Dion, if you could change one thing at Arsenal, what would it be?
I just want you to be happy here.
Oh, I'm touched.
So whatever you want. I think Wenger has to go. I think at the end of the season, try and do it in a. I think once it happens, it will become a more dignified thing. It will quieten down the angry fans if they know he's leaving. And I think that is the thing. It's not risk free, but I think it's the thing that has to happen. And it is sad, but it has to happen.
You don't want it to go from Wenger in or Wenger out to is he still here? Because that's what's going to happen, I think, in the end. And for his sake, I just hope that
Richie, what are your thoughts? If you could change one thing at Arsenal, what would you change?
I would take Arsenal and liquefy them completely.
Wow, liquidation. Let's wrap up on the social vote. Let us know exactly who is the most frustrating player in the Premier League. Don't let me down, people. I know exactly where you're going. I know how you think. Tell me the answers.
So the vote is in,
Right.
and as I said at the beginning, it was a bit of an experiment because my personal choice for that would be Mesut Ozil, and I could have put him as the like button, but I had a feeling that a lot of people would be hitting like button without actually knowing what they were voting for. So instead, we put him as the love button. So the result is in fourth place. The most frustrating player as voted for by you, the general public, is Jamie Vardy of Leicester City. In third place, the professional footballer, every now and again, once every 3 weeks, Daniel Sturridge. Second place, Manchester United's Anthony Martial, which means the most frustrating player as voted for by you, and this is legit because he wasn't the like button, it was the love button, is Arsenal's Mesut Ozil.
Frustrating times to be an Arsenal fan. However, I still love you, Mesut. I still love you. You are appreciated, at least by me. And I'm thankful that we've got the guy, I've got to say. However, he and everyone else at the club has got to do more, if only for the sake of Arsene Wenger, who will, I'm sure, be moving on very soon, sooner rather than later.
I have got one quick question. It's a very soulful sort of theme that we've had on today's Shakespeare. We had James Brown on, and we've had an amazing question from Barry White on Twitter.
Wow.
Why is David dressed like a Thompson twin from Tintin?
Find out next week.
I just woke up like this.
That's about all the time we've got for this week. I want to thank 888sport. I want to take a special moment to thank you guys for getting so involved. It's always a pleasure to hear your thoughts. If you can now give us some love by liking us on YouTube and subscribing, following us on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, all the social media accounts that we are on, which is pretty much all of them. But for now, I've been Hugh Izzy. This has been a beautiful panel, and you have been loved. We'll see you next time, guys.